All right. So it's time to talk about discharge. And not the nasty discharge.
Wow.
The fun one. Discharging payment. See, I got my little nasty jokes. Haha. I got one. It's not as bad as Brandon, but I got one. There you go. Little Virgo nasty joke. So we're going to do 3-601. We're going to go all the way down to 3-605. So we are officially in part 6 of the UCCodes. So discharge inside an effective discharge. The obligation of a party to pay the instrument is discharged as stated in this article or by an act of agreement with the party which would discharge an obligation to pay money under a simple contract. Discharge of the obligation of a party is not effective against a person acquiring rights of a holder in due course of the instrument without notice of discharge. So you can't just like be like, fuck it, discharge. You got to go through the whole process, the rigmarole. So discharge of the obligation of a party is not effective against a person acquiring rights of a holder in due course. Okay. So payment. Subject to subsection B, an instrument is paid to the extent of payment is made. 1, by or on behalf of a party that's obliged to pay the instrument, of course. And 2, a person entitled to enforce the instrument. To the extent of the payment, the obligation of the party that's obliged to pay the instrument is discharged even though the payment is made with knowledge of a claim to the instrument under section 3-306 by another person. B. Subject to subsection E, a note is paid to the extent payment is made by or on behalf of a party obliged to pay the note to a person that formerly was entitled to enforce the note. No, you can eat it, baby. Thank you for offering me. I'll eat another one later. Okay, so subject to subsection E, a note is paid to the extent payment is made by or on behalf of a party obliged to pay the note to a person that formerly was entitled to enforce the note, only if at the time of the payment the party was obliged to pay has not received adequate notification that the note has been transferred and that payment is to be made to the transferee. So a notification is adequate only if it is signed by the transferor or the transferee, reasonably identifies the transfer note, and provides an address at which payment subsequently can be made. Upon request, a transferee shall seasonably furnish reasonable proof that the note has been transferred. Unless the transferee complies with the request, a payment to the person that formerly was entitled to enforce the note is effective for purpose of subsection C, even if the party obliged to pay the note has received a notification under this paragraph. C, subject to subsection E, to the extent of a payment under subsections A and B, the obligation of the party obliged to pay the instrument is discharged, even though payment is made with knowledge of a claim to the instrument under section 3-306 by another person. So when we were going through the 300s of the UCCodes, I want to say that's when you like enforcement of the instrument. So 3-3006 is claims to an instrument. A person taking an instrument other than a person having rights of a holder in due course is subject to claim of a property or possessory rights in the instrument or its proceeds. So basically like that whole possession law, if you possess it, you go through the holder in due course. You go through the whole rigmarole of the whatever. This is how like different like scams kind of go forth. Like the checking schemes. If I send you a check, you still can go cash it because you're the holder, and you can still go through the process of cashing the check and stuff like that. It was a whole thing when I was in college. I won't incriminate myself right now. Anyway,
What do you mean?
I'll talk about it later. Anyway, one of those type of things. So, subject subsection E, a transferee to or any party that has acquired rights in the instrument directly or indirectly from the transferee, including any such party that has rights as a holder in due course, is deemed to have notice of any payment that is made under subsection B after the date that the note is transferred to the transferee, but before the party is obliged to pay the note, receives adequate notification of the transfer. So the obligation of a party to pay the instrument is not discharged under subsections A through D, F. This is how it's not discharged. 1. The claim of the instrument under subsection 3-306 is enforceable against the party receiving payment, and payment is made with knowledge by the payer that payment is prohibited by injunction or similar process of a court or competent jurisdiction. 2, in the case of an instrument other than a cashier's check, teller's check, or certified check, the party making the payment accepted from the person having a claim to the instrument, indemnity against loss resulting from refusal to pay the person entitled to enforce. Scooby? The instrument. Or 2, the person making the payment knows that the instrument is a stolen instrument and pays a person knows it is wrongful possession of the instrument. I hear it as long as I can hear his name. So if you know you're doing something wrong, then it's not okay. If you know it's incorrect, you have a check that you're not supposed to have, then yeah, it will not be discharged because you knew what you were doing. F, as used in section signed with respect to a record that is not writing, includes the attachment to or logical association of the record of electronic symbol, sound, or process to or with the record, the present intent to adopt or accept the record. It's really just the sentence structure. Like, because I get the jargon now. Like, I get the words, the definitions of the words, but right now it's just like, I would probably end up having to read this shit again.
Can this go for
once I get used to the sentence structure? Because the sentence structure is very weird to me.
What English?
Yeah, it's dumb.
Latinese thing we were talking about it earlier. Latinese. Not Latinese.
Latinese.
Legalese.
Well, yeah, I guess because the structure of Latin sentences irritated me as well because there was no
there was no actual uniformity or structure or
I like
they didn't subjects.
I'm an earth sign.
They didn't subject nouns because it was all on assumption. It makes sense when you're there.
All right. So 3-603, tender of payment. F, tender of payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument. The effect of tender is governed by principles of law applicable to tender of payment under a simple contract. So B says, if tender of payment, let's look up tender of payment. What is tender of payment? Tender of payment is an offer to pay a debt or an obligation in a specified amount, usually in current currency, by a debtor or an obliger, of course, to another party. It's a condition for a seller to fulfill their duty to deliver something, and it can be made in any way that's common in business. However, a seller can also request payment in legal tender and give a reasonable extension of time to get it. So a tender of payment may be defined as an unconditional offer by a debtor or an obliger to pay another in current coin of the realm. Coin of the realm, I like that. A sum not less in amount than that due on a specified debt or obligation. Tender of payment typically arises within the law of commercial paper or when a party obliged and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, let's get back to it. So that obligation paying of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument, and the tender is refused, there is a discharge. So if I give you the tender and you refuse to take the tender, then it's discharge to the extent of the amount of the tender. So whatever amount I put on the tender. Of the obligation of an endorser or accommodation party having right of recourse, which is extermination, with respect to the obligation to which the tender relates. So F, tender of payment, which we said was an unconditional offer or an offer to pay a debt. So if the offer to pay a debt of an obligation to pay an instrument, basically says it twice. So why would you even need to put tender of payment? You basically said it 2 times. But if an obligation to pay an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument, And so what's the entitled? Let's talk about that. Be a person entitled to enforce an instrument means the holder of the instrument, a non-holder in possession of the instrument who has rights of the holder, a person not in possession of the instrument who is entitled to enforce the instrument in pursuant to section 3-309 or 3-418. D, a person who may be entitled to enforce the instrument even though the person is not the owner of the instrument or is in wrongful possession of the instrument. Okay. A holder is an individual or entity that owns the securities or other assets. Okay, so that is the individual that holds the securities, if you want to know what a holder is. So let's go back. So the tender of payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to the person that is entitled to force, which could be the holder, the non-holder, whatever, the different elements. They have it. They're entitled to enforce the instrument. And the tender is refused. We will not take the tender. There is a discharge if you don't take my tender, to the extent of the amount of the tender. Whatever I put on the tender, you don't take it, it's a discharge of the obligation of the endorser or accommodation party having the right to recourse with respect to the obligation to which the tender relates. Now, if a tender of payment of an amount due on an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument, the obligation of the obliger to pay interest after the due date on the amount tendered is discharged, right? I paid it on time. I don't got to pay the interest. What you talking about? A presentment is required with respect to an instrument, and the obliger is able and ready to pay on the due date at every place of payment stated in the instrument. The obliger is deemed to have made tender of payment on due date, and the person entitled to enforce the instrument. So, like, what's tender, though?
Yesterday, that was in
legal
that was
tender.
in the video. That was like negotiation. Well, not negotiation, but like presenting a coin, silver coin.
The coin of the realm. I like that. I'm gonna put that in a song. Coin of the realm. That gotta be in the hook. I own the coin of the realm. Something. Anyway, so legal tender refers to all U.S. coins and currency that's issued by the government. U.S. cash dollars are also a valid form of legal tender. Nonetheless, federal statutes do not require a seller to accept cash as a form of legal tender for payment of goods or services that were rendered. Cash includes the Federal Reserve note. So I have a right to refuse. And if you refuse it, it is discharged, right? If tender of payment of an amount due on an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument, the obligation of the obliger, who's the obliger? Let's find out. Let's break this all the way down so we really know what we're saying. The obliger is the debtor. This is the person who is legally obliged to provide a benefit or payment. I got to pay it. A financial context, the term obliger refers to the bond issuer who is contractually bound to make all principal repayments and interest payments on an outstanding debt. Obliger is the person who owes the money. The obligee is who it is owed to, right? So if I give the tender the obligation of the obliger, because I owe it to pay interest after that due date on the amount tendered, is discharged because I paid it on the date, right? Now, if tender, the cash, whatever, a payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument, and the tender is refused, you didn't take my money, then there is a discharge to the extent of the amount of the tender. So if my bill was $300 and I gave you a tender of $300 and you refuse it, then it's discharge. You're not taking my tender. I'm not telling you that I don't have it. I'm giving it to you, right? And I just so happen I love divine alignments. I went down the rabbit hole today on money. And so we're going to read a little bit about that and get a a clear idea of tenders and notes. The obligation of an endorser or accommodation party having a right of recourse. Let's find out what's the right of recourse. I know this is all refresher. I know we did this already, but some people come in here and they want to watch the latest video without watching the first one, and we give them grace. It's a lot. You're allowed to be impatient, I guess. So the right of recourse, also known as the right of recovery, is a legal provision that allows a party to seek compensation or remedies for damages caused by another person's actions or omissions. It can arise in contracts or similar relationships. When one party enforces another party to accept its legal liabilities and responsibilities in a contract. Okay. The right of recourse is the principle of subrogation. Is the insurer shall take all the place of the insured. That's not it. It's an attempt to remedy. I'm attempting to remedy, to satisfy. Okay. So the obligation of an endorser the endorser means the person who makes an endorsement. What's an endorsement? I know what an endorsement is when you sign it. Endorsement means signature, other than that of a signer, as maker, drawer, or acceptor. So the person that signs on the instrument. That alone or accompanied by words that's made on the instrument for the person of negotiating the instrument, restricting payment of the instrument, incurring endorser's liability on the instrument. But regardless of the intent of the signer, a signature and its accompanying words is an endorsement unless the accompanying words, terms of the instrument, place of the signature, or other circumstances unambiguously indicate that the signature was made for a purpose other than an endorsement. All right? That's what the endorser is, the person that signed it. I endorsed the check, right? So the obligation of an endorser or accommodation party having a right of recourse. I have the right to remedy with respect to the obligation to which the tender relates. So, if tender of a payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument, and the tender is refused, there is discharge. That's it. That's all. So, you want to read 3-604 for me, kid?
All right. 3-604, discharge by cancellation or renunciation. A person entitled to enforce an instrument with or without consideration may discharge the obligation of a party to pay the instrument. 1. By an intentional voluntary act such as surrender of the instrument to the party, destruction, mutilation, or cancellation of the instrument. Cancellation or striking out of the party's signature. Or the addition of words to the instrument indicating discharge. Or 2. By agreeing not to sue or otherwise renouncing rights against the party, signed by, against the party tribe. Why does it tribe? Rights against the party by a signed record.
What are you looking at? Oh yeah, your own B.
B. Cancellation or striking out of an endorsement pursuant to subsection A does not affect the status and rights of a party derived from the endorsement. C. As used in this section, signed with respect to a record that is not a writing includes the attachment to or logical association with the record of an electronic symbol, sound, or process, or with the record with the present intent to adopt or accept the record.
Mm-hmm. So, sometimes you might endorse something on the internet, so you typed it instead of using your actual handwriting signature. Mm-hmm.
So those are allowed as well as symbols, which is how initials are accepted.
Yep. And then also for A, I give you my tender. So I gave it to you. You can choose to discharge it by ripping it up. You can cross it out. You can scribble scrabble on it. You can write void on it. You can put a stamp on it, whatever you want to do. Because I gave it to you. It's yours. All right? I don't want your money. Rip it up. You see that in movies a lot. People taking the check and ripping it up. People taking their money and ripping it up.
I always thought it was extra.
It is. It's a dramatic way to discharge the debt. I gave you the money. You don't want to take the money? That doesn't take away the fact that I gave it to you. All right, last but not least. One second. I got one more left. Sorry, not needed. So, discharge of secondary obliger. If a person entitled to enforce an instrument releases the obligation of a principal obliger in whole or in part, and another party to the instrument, so like if you had a co-signer, is a secondary obliger with respect to the obligation of that principal obliger, the following rules apply. Any obligations of the principal obliger to the secondary obliger with respect to any previous payment by the secondary obliger are not affected, unless the terms of the release preserve the secondary obliger's recourse. The principal obliger is discharged to the extent of the release from any duties to the secondary obliger under the article. 2. Unless the terms of the release provide that the person entitled to enforce the instrument retains the right to enforce the instrument against the secondary obliger, because maybe y'all got 2 different contracts with the person, I don't know. The secondary obliger is discharged to the same extent, right? Unless I say otherwise, as a principal obliger from any unperformed portion of his obligation on the instrument. If the instrument is a check and the obligation of the secondary obliger is based on an endorsement of the check, the secondary obliger is discharged without regard to the language or circumstances of discharge or other releases. If the secondary obliger is not discharged under paragraph 2, the secondary obliger is discharged to the extent of the value of the consideration for release and to the extent that the release would otherwise cause the secondary obliger a loss. B. If a person entitled to enforce an instrument grants a principal obliger an extension of time at which one or more payments are due on an instrument and another party to the instrument as a secondary obliger with respect to the obligation of that principal obliger, the following rules apply. Any obligation, so like, I call and I say, hey, I don't have my money till next Friday. I'm the principal. I'm the main signature on the joint, and you say, hey, it's cool, pay me next Friday. This is what's going to happen to the secondary person on my co-signer on my contract. Any obligations of the principal obliger to the secondary obliger with respect to any previous payments by the secondary obliger are not affected. All right. So the co-signer is cool. Unless the terms of the extension preserve the secondary obliger's recourse, the extension correspondingly extends the time for performance of any duties owed by the secondary obliger. So if I get an extension, my co-signer has an extension. Okay.
So does that work with when a parent or guardian signs their signature for their child?
Like student loans is a big one. Everybody gets duped into those things. So, I'm the main person if I'm over 18, whatever. So like if I don't pay it back, I have my parents as my co-signer, they get, penalized for that as well. But if I call them and say, hey, can you push that back to the then it reflects well on their stuff. The secondary obliger is discharged to the extent that the extension would otherwise cause the secondary obliger loss. To the extent that the secondary obliger is not discharged under paragraph 2, the secondary obliger may perform its obligations to a person entitled to enforce the instrument as if the time for payment had not been extended for, unless the terms of the extension provided that the person entitled to enforce the instrument retains the right to enforce the instrument against the secondary obliger as if the time for payment has not been extended. Treat the time for performance of its obligations as having been extended correspondingly. Feels like it's about to rain. If a person entitled to enforce an instrument agrees, with or without consideration, to the modification of the obligation of the principal obliger other than the complete or partial release of an extension of a due date, and another party to the instrument is secondary obliger with respect to the obligation, any obligations of the principal obliger to the secondary obliger with respect to any previous payment by the secondary obliger are not affected. So if y'all two got a contract or idea amongst yourselves, that's between y'all. But y'all still under the same terms and conditions on my contract. So whatever the principal obliger is going through, see, I heard it. I felt it first. I felt the wind. Then the secondary obliger, same thing. The modification correspondingly modifies any other duties owed to the secondary obliger by the principal obliger under this article. The secondary obliger is discharged from any unperformed portion of this obligation to the extent that the modification would otherwise cause the secondary obliger a loss. To the extent that the secondary obliger is not discharged under paragraph 2, the secondary obliger may satisfy its obligations to the instrument as if the modification had not occurred, or treat its obligation on the instrument as having been modified correspondingly. If the obligation of a principal obliger is secured by an interest in collateral of another party to the instrument is a secondary obliger with respect to that obligation, and the person entitled to enforce the instrument impairs the value of the interest in collateral, the obligation of the secondary obliger is discharged to the extent of the impairment. Okay. Again, we're under the same terms and conditions. We signed the same contract. I'm just the co-signer. The fuck. The value of an interest in collateral is impaired to the extent that the value of the interest is reduced to the amount less than the amount of recourse of the secondary obliger, or the reduction in value of the interest causes an increase in the amount of the recourse exceeds the value of the interest. For purposes of the subsection, impairing the value of an interest and collateral includes failure to obtain or maintain perfection or recordation of the interest in collateral, release of collateral with substitution of collateral of equal value or equivalent reduction of the underlying obligation, failure to perform a duty to preserve the value of collateral owed under Article 9 or other law to a debtor or other person secondarily liable, and failure to comply with applicable law in disposing of or otherwise enforcing the interest and collateral. A secondary obliger is not discharged under subsection 3, A, 3, B, or C, or D unless the person entitled to enforce the instrument knows that the person is a secondary obliger or has notice under section 3-419C. And that instrument was signed for accommodation. Okay. So if you decide to sign some extra shit on your own, that's your business. A secondary obliger is not discharged under the section if the secondary obliger consents to the event or conduct that is basis of the discharge, or the instrument or separate agreement of the party provides for waiver or discharge under this section specifically, or by general language indicating that parties waive defenses based on suretyship. What's suretyship? Let's find out. Suretyship is a contractual agreement where one person, the surety, agrees to be responsible for another person's, the principal's debt. So it's another pretty word for cosigner. Okay, you're on the suretyship or impairment of collateral, unless the circumstances indicate otherwise. Consent by the principal obliger to act that would lead to a discharge under this section constitutes consent to that act by the secondary obliger if the secondary obliger controls the principal obliger or deals with the person entitled to enforce the instrument on behalf of the principal obliger. A release or extension preserves a secondary obliger's recourse if the terms of the release or extension provide that the person entitled to enforce the instrument retains the right to enforce the instrument against the secondary obliger, and the recourse of the secondary obliger continues as though the release or extension had not been granted. Except as otherwise provided in subsection 1, a secondary obliger asserting discharge under this section has the burden of persuasion both with respect to the occurrence of the acts alleged to harm of the secondary obliger and loss or prejudice caused by those acts. So, these are telling you your rights as your co-signer. You can, have your own extensions and recourse and stuff like that, as long as the initial terms and conditions allow it. Now, if the secondary obliger demonstrates prejudice caused by an impairment of its recourse and the circumstances of the case indicate that the amount of loss is not reasonably susceptible of calculation or requires proof of facts that are not ascertainable, then it is presumed that the act of impairing recourse caused a loss of impairment equal to the liability of the secondary obliger on the instrument. In that event, the burden of persuasion as to any lesser amount of the loss on the person entitled to enforce this instrument. So that is the grounds of discharge. Pretty straightforward. Let you know, and you guys co-signers, you guys have rights too. So starting tomorrow, we'll be on part 4 of the UCCodes. We have completely finished part 3, all about instruments and things. And that UCCodes, part 3 is like the big one for everybody when they want to pay bills and stuff like that. So again, like I said, we'll probably have to read this again with a different set of eyes at some point in time, but a lot of the stuff, the videos and stuff that we read is going to like refer back to it. So we'll be referring back to Article 3 a lot. But Article 4 deals with bank deposits and collections, which is we'll be going through general provisions and definitions, of course, depository and collecting banks, collection of items, the payer banks, relationship between payer bank and the customer, collection of documentary drafts, all that fun stuff. So 5 parts there. And that's it for that for now. So I wanted to go, so I did a little rabbit hole of information. I was trying to start Paths to Freedom, Discharge That Shit video. And in the midst of it, I didn't even start it yet. Like, I went through like the first couple of words and I was like, wait, what do these words mean? And I just went through a whole rabbit hole of definitions. So just to these are some things that I would like to get into looking into. But the Banking Act of 1933, the Glass-Steagall Act, is a big one. I remember learning about that in school, but definitely coming back to that. Oh yeah, this is how the rabbit hole started. I was on the Federal Reserve history reading about it, and then I highlighted securities, and I started going down the rabbit hole of securities and tender and all that stuff like that. It was a whole 3-hour thing. I guess we could start here. For real. We can read the synopsis of it. So the Banking Act of 1933, which is the Glass-Steagall Act. The Glass-Steagall Act effectively separated commercial banking from investment banking and created the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, among other things, which is the FDIC. You guys usually see on your debit cards and stuff. So there's like a insurance on all of you guys' monies. It was one of the most widely debated legislative initiatives before being signed into law by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1933. All right. So the emergency legislation that was passed within days of Franklin D. Roosevelt's taking office in March 1933. So it was like as soon as he came into office, he was signing this, right? It was just the start of the process to restore confidence in the banking system. Congress saw the need for substantial reform for the banking system, which eventually came into the Banking Act of 1933, or the Glass-Steagall Act. So let's do the math, because I'm a numerologist. I love it here. So we have a president. So we are on the brink of another form of bankruptcy happening. I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, but a bunch of people withdrew their money from the stocks. It caused a big rift in the stocking, and this is how it started in the 1920s. It is now the 2020s. We are in a 100-year cycle, right? So now we're back in this 100-year cycle. And the thing with the money has a denomination of 100. So every 100 years we repeat history. Okay. Because that's the denomination of money. Right. Okay. So it's 2024. Our new president happens 2025. 4 years from there is 2029. 4 years from there is 2033. So by 2033, we might have a whole new banking system act in act. And that makes it kind of interesting, right? So it's like, if a president serves 2 terms, their second term, right? Like 5 to 9. No, it'll be after they serve their 2 terms, the person after that. And that's if we keep playing the president game. Is that the US dollar going down like that? Yeah. See, if we was playing Forex right now, make a killing off of that shit. But yeah. So 3 president elections from now, we might be repeating some type of banking act or something, depending on how well this whole situation goes. Also, time moves a whole lot faster now than it did back then. So ain't no telling. We could very well already be in 2033 in some type of way, shape, or form, right? But anyway, that's just me taking the spiritual out of it. You don't have to read too far into that. But the emergency legislation that was passed within days of Franklin taking office in March 1933 1933, which is the start of the process to restore confidence in the banking system. Congress saw the need for substantial reform of the banking system, which eventually came into the Banking Act of 1933, or the Glass-Steagall Act. The bill was designed to provide for the safer and more effective use of assets to banks, to regulate interbank control, to prevent the undue diversion of funds into speculative operations, and for other purposes. The measure was sponsored by Senator Carter Glass, which was a Democrat of Virginia, and Rep. Henry Steagall, which was a Democrat in Alabama. Glass, a former Treasury Secretary, was a primary force behind the act. Steagall, then chairman of the House Banking and Currency Committee, agreed to support the act with Glass after an amendment was added to permit bank deposit insurance, which is the FDIC. On June 16, 1933, President Roosevelt signed the bill into law. Glass originally introduced his banking reform bill in January 1932. It received extensive critiques and comments from bankers, economists, and the Federal Reserve Board. It passed the Senate in February 1932, but the House adjourned before coming to a decision. It was one of the most widely discussed and debated legislative initiatives in 1932. Some background: in the wake of 1929, stock market crashed and the subsequent Great Depression. Congress was concerned that the commercial banking operations and the payment systems were incurring losses from volatile equity markets. An important motivation for the act was the desire to restrict the use of bank credit for speculation and to direct the bank credit into what Glass and others thought to be more productive uses, such as industry, commerce, and agriculture. So in response to these concerns, the main provisions of the Banking Act of 1933 effectively separated commercial banking from investment banking. All right. So let's find out what commercial banking is. See, this is how the rabbit hole started. Commercial banking, also known as corporate banking, is a type of banking that provides services to businesses, governments, and other institutions to help them grow and profit. Commercial banks offer a variety of financial products and services, including deposit accounts, loans, lines of credit, payment processing, credit cards, mortgage loans, vehicle loans, personal checking savings, and also they have the ATM machines. Investment banking, which I believe is like the stocks and bonds and Forex and all that. But hold on. Let me just make sure I'm correct. Investment banking acts as an intermediary between investors and businesses, helping them raise and manage capital. Investment banks work with large corporations, including institutional investors and government, to access capital markets to secure funding for large-scale projects. They may do this by issuing securities, providing financing, or advising on mergers and acquisitions. Investment banks often operate on an international level and negotiate complex financial transactions, okay? The investment banking focuses on assisting companies and governments in raising capital, either by issuing securities in the capital markets or providing advisory services for mergers, acquisitions, or other major corporations, while commercial banks primarily deal with deposits and loans for individuals and businesses. So commercial banks is like the banks that we see outside every day. And I want to say that investment banks are kind of like the U.S. Treasuries and the Federal Reserve banks that actually like print out the monies and stuff. Some of these banks still do both, though. Like JP Morgan does both. So it's kind of like, even though this was done in 1933, it still kind of went back into there being a blurred line with certain banks. Like Goldman Sachs is an investment banking. They do securities and investment management. Wells Fargo is more commercial. JP Morgan, of course, does for both, because they're one of those like original people. Shit probably never applies to them. Citigroup is an investment bank. TD is a commercial bank. Commercial and investment banks are both critical financial institutions in modern economy, but they perform very different functions. Commercial banks are what most people think of when they hear the term bank. Commercial banks accept deposits, make loans, safeguard assets, work with many different types of clients, including general public and, quote unquote, small businesses. All right. On the other hand, investment banks provide services to large corporations and institutional investors. These are the big dogs. An investment bank may help in merger and acquisitions. So when two big companies come together and make one, like the different telecom companies that were coming together, I guess like T-Mobile when they were merging with other companies, and when the different cable companies were merging with each other.
Didn't that also destroy lines in different channels when they start doing stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. So they had to have certain regulations with that too. I don't know how well they're being enforced, but the critical difference between the two types of banks is who they provide their services to. So that's pretty much the bigger thing. Investment bank is for the big dogs. Commercial bank is for the small businesses. Okay. So anyway, Senator Glass was the driving force behind this provision. Basically, commercial banks, which took in deposits and made loans, were no longer allowed to underwrite or deal in securities, while investment banks, which underwrote and dealt in securities, were no longer to have close connections to the commercial banks, such as overlapping directorships or common ownership. Following the passage of the act, institutions were given a year to decide whether they were specialized in commercial or investment banking. Only 10% of commercial banks' total income could stem from securities. However, an exception allowed commercial banks to underwrite government-issued bonds. The separation of commercial and investment banking was not controversial in 1933. There was a broad belief that separation would lead to a healthier financial system. It became more controversial over the years, and in 1999, the Graham-Leach-Biley Act repealed the provisions of the Banking Act of 1933 that restricted affiliations between banks and security firms. Okay, that's probably why JP Morgan can do both. Financial Services Modernization Act of 1999, Graham-Leach-Biley. Look at these niggas. This legislation, signed into law by President Bill Clinton in November 1999, repealed large parts of the Glass-Steagall Act, which had separated commercial and investment banking since 1933. This led to the creation of financial holding companies, over which the Fed was granted new supervisory powers. By the late 1990s, well, let's go back. Let's go back to this one first, and then we'll come back there. See, this is what I be doing. This is why it took me so long. That I didn't even get to the video yet. Okay. Where was I? I was talking about 1999. Oh, in the wake. Oh well. In the wake of 1929 stock market crash and subsequent Great Depression, Congress was concerned that commercial banking operations and payment systems were incurring losses from volatile equity markets. An important motivation for the act was the desire to restrict the use of bank credit for speculation and direct bank credit into what Glass and others thought would be more productive uses. Oh, I've been read that. Oh, here we are. So in 1999, the Graham-Leach-Biley Act repealed the provisions of the Banking Act of 1933 that restricted affiliations between banks and security firms. The act also gave tighter regulation on the national banks. We're back to 1933, y'all. The act also gave tighter regulation to national banks, to the Federal Reserve System, requiring holding companies and other affiliates of state member banks to make 3 reports annually to their Federal Reserve Bank and to the Federal Reserve Board. Furthermore, bank holding companies that owned a majority of shares of any Federal Reserve member bank had to register with the Fed and obtain its permit to vote their shares in the selection of directors of any such member bank subsidiary. Another important provision of the Act creates the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, that's the FDIC, which issues bank deposits with a pool of money collected from the bank. This provision was the most controversial at the time and drew veto threats from President Roosevelt. It was included at the insistence of Steagall, who had interest in small rural banks in mind. Small rural banks and their representatives were the main proponents of deposit insurance. Opposition came from large banks that believed they would end up subsidizing small banks. Past attempts by states to instate deposit insurance have been unsuccessful because of a moral hazard and also because local banks were not diversified. After the bank holiday, the public showed vast support for insurance, partly in the hope of recovering some of their losses and partly because many blamed Wall Street and big bankers for the depression. Although Glass had opposed deposit insurance for years, he changed his mind and urged Roosevelt to accept it. A temporary fund became effective in January 1934, insuring deposits up to $2,500. The fund became permanent in July 1934, and the limit was raised to $5,000. The limit was raised numerous times over the years until reaching a new current of $250,000. So every time you guys make a deposit, there's a $250,000 insurance attached. Okay. A Federal Reserve member banks on or before 1934 were required to become stockholders of the FDIC by no such date. No state bank was eligible for membership in the Federal Reserve System until it became a stockholder of the FDIC. That's interesting. So you had to invest in the FDIC in order to have a membership in the system, and thereby became an insured institution with required membership by national banks and voluntary membership by state banks. Deposit insurance is still viewed as a great success, although the problem of moral hazard and adverse selection came up again during the banking failures of the 1980s. In response, Congress passed legislation that strengthened capital requirements and banks with less capital to close. Can you finish this out for me, please?
The act had a large impact on the Federal Reserve. Notable provisions included the creation of the Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC, under Section 8. However, the 1933 FOMC did not include voting rights for the Federal Reserve Board, which was revised by the Banking Act of 1935 and amended again in 1942 to closely resemble the modern FOMC. Prior to the passage of the act, there were no restrictions on the right of a bank officer of a member bank to borrow from that bank. Excessive loans to bank officers and directors became a concern to bank regulators. In response, the act prohibited Federal Reserve member bank loans to their executive officers and required the repayment of outstanding loans. In addition, the act introduced what later became known as Regulation Q, which mandated that interest could not be paid on checking accounts and gave the Federal Reserve authority to establish ceilings on the interest that they could be paid on other kinds of deposits. The view was that the payment of interest on deposits led to excessive competition among banks, causing them to engage in unduly risky investment and lending policies so that they could earn enough income to pay the interest. The
Prohibition.
I was about to say if I said that wrong. Prohibition of interest-bearing demand accounts has been successfully repealed by the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Product Protection Act of 2010, beginning July 21st, 2011. Financial institutions became allowed, but not required, to offer interest-bearing demand accounts.
So now it is option to have insurance on your checking account, but that's why checking accounts get handed out like M&Ms. It's easy to get a checking account. Majority of these cash apps like Stash and Chime and all that, they offer you a checking account, and then you have an option of opening a savings account, because more than likely it's the savings account that has the insurance on it. But interesting stuff. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole with these reforms.
How do you feel about it?
Oh, I don't care about none of this shit for real. But Art of War says you gotta learn how your enemy is moving. You know what's crazy? While you were reading, I thought of some crazy shit. I was thinking like, yo, everybody's worried about the president and all this stuff like that. Like, what if y'all, just doing a popular vote on the board of the Federal Reserve? What if this is all just a big ass, bank? I don't know. Because you can't really vote for the president of the Federal Reserve. You can have a popular vote, but you don't select them. It's a group of people that select them. And the Federal Reserve already has their 12 members in their little Congress government thing. They have their governors and stuff. So if they have governors, that means they have a government. They literally call their board governors. So what if all this shit is just a bank? That's my theory. I'll go down my rabbit hole on that one later. But I just thought that was interesting because everything is about money here. Like, when you think about the presidents and what they be talking about in their speeches and shit, it's always money related. Everything is always money related. Everything over here is just about money, 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 money. It's nothing else, for real, for real. You want food? Money. You want house? Money. You want car? Money. You want money. You commit a crime? Crimes usually committed are money related. Anyway, what is the Emergency Banking Act of 1933? It refers to the legislation passed by the federal government to mitigate the economic problems triggered by the Great Depression of 1929. The purpose of the Emergency Banking Act of 1933 was to reform and reestablish citizens' faith in American banks, which had been taking a hit during this period. So they just wanted citizens' faith. That's what they wanted. Want to know why? Because if you decide not to believe in the dollar can no longer exist. Did we just read that in the UCCode? If I don't take your tender, then it's discharge, right? Doesn't matter if you try to give it to me, then it's satisfied. But if I decide that I don't want it, then it's discharge. There is no debt. There is no payment. It's that simple.
Isn't that what you said about the annual yearly checks?
I don't want to sign up for stuff. Huh?
The annual yearly checks?
Oh, the income tax checks?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a joke. But that also keeps people excited about paying taxes and thinking they get their tax money back. They don't really get their tax money back when you think about how inflation moves. And then, that was another thing I got into in the rabbit hole, how money accrues itself. How that works, yeah, you're not getting your money back. Like, if there's if my money is supposed to have a certain level of interest, why are you only giving me this amount back? And it's not even everything that I gave you. It's only a partial amount of what I gave you, and there's no interest attached to it. But because we accept it, we get excited about it, that's all they have to give us. But nah, technically, you're supposed to get back way more than that. Where's my interest? Like, if we're going to believe in money, give me my shit. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The purpose of the Emergency Banking Act of 1933 was to reform and reestablish their faith in American banks, which had taken a hit because people stopped believing in the banks. People started taking their money out. Due to the dismal state of economic affairs, people withdrew their deposits. So you got that. You got the FDIC established. Confidence was restored. People love it here again. We got our customers back. Thanks, Roosevelt. I don't know. That's further like supporting my brain. My brain just was like, yeah, bitch, this is all just a big ass bank. Niggas is hype about a bank president. Anyway. The Emergency Banking Act, the EBA, sometimes called the Emergency Banking Relief Act, introduced several measures, some of which are still in effect. During this period, the Federal Deposit Insurance, the FDIC, was established under the purview of the Banking Act of 1933 as an agency to safeguard customer deposits. It was one of the key measures undertaken to allow the government to handle emergency functions well. Can you read the key takeaways for me, kid?
All right. Key takeaways. The Emergency Banking Act, EBA, refers to the legislation passed by the Franklin D. Roosevelt government in 1933 to control the effects of the Great Depression and the stock market crash of 1929. The act included 5 sections known as titles, which conferred special powers on government departments during a financial crisis. The Emergency Banking Act, I thought I said Banking Act of 1933 purpose was to restore customers' faith in the American banking system and encourage them to hold their savings as deposits with banks.
So the Emergency Banking Act of 1933 was introduced to cushion the blow, which emerged due to the Great Depression and the stock market crash in 1929. Here is a series of events that occurred. So at 1 p.m. on March 6, Roosevelt suspended all banking activities and declared a 4-day bank holiday, including the Federal Reserve. On the 9th, the President signed the act. The Congress passed the legislation. On the 10th, executive order. In fact, hold on. You know I gotta go to the stars on this one. Hold on. 1933. March 6, 1933. Oh, asteroids. That's not what I want. But that is interesting. There was a lot of water shit going on. It's not what I want. Hold on. My keyboard over there? Okay, excuse me. Keyboard. Maybe that's just. You're playing. That's not what I want. Let's just do it this way. No, not my screen freezing. I'm about to say, stop playing with me. District of Columbia. All right, so March 6, 1933, the sun was in Pisces. Delusions all over the place. At a 15 degree, 1 and 5, knowledge, welcome to the power of truth, bringing to 6, number equality. It was in the 9th house of expansion, generosity, 9th house of sacral chakra. So this was sacral chakra shit. The sun was in internal and external side of the sacral chakra. So was Venus, which was the monies. Delusions with the money. The North Node was also in Pisces at this period of time. Also very interesting. Going towards the delusions. Ceres with the shits and the delusions. The 10th house was in Pisces as well. All delusional shit. And Taurus was on the 11th house. 11th house is Aquarius. That's the social awareness, social justice. And I was in the space of money. Who else was around money? Chiron, wounds. Venus was over there. Pisces being deluded. Saturn was in Aquarius, challenges to the social awareness and justice. Uranus was in Aries, space of new beginnings, progressive pushes to new beginnings in that 10th house, which was Pisces. That would bring you back to all the delusions. Very interesting. Mars and Jupiter in Virgo. Jupiter in Virgo sounds wild. Neptune in Virgo sounds wild. Very interesting indeed. Anyway, so the President signs the act on March 9th. March 10th, the Executive Order 6073 facilitated the reopening of the banks after the 4-day hiatus. The President, on March 12th, the President gave his first fireside chat, which conferred additional currency issuing powers. and the 12th Federal Bank Reserve Bank, because there's 12 across the United States map as we know it. He also divided the act into 5 emergency banking acts, 1933 titles. Title 1. Can you read Title 1 for me? What's Title 1 about?
Title I conferred upon the President extraordinary powers during a financial or banking crisis. With this, a U.S. President can act independently without consulting the Federal Reserve and make decisions
It's a pop-up.
about forex transactions, gold reserves, and bank payments, etc.
So a U.S. president can act independently without consulting the Federal Reserve and make decisions about the monies. Why would the U.S. president give a fuck about that? Because this is all a bank. I'm going with my conspiracy theory. It feels good. Anyway, Title 2. Assign powers to the Office of the Comptroller of a Currency, which is the OCC, to control and monitor the activities of banks with impaired assets. For this, a conservator would be appointed such banks. Well, what is the OCC? And I also want to know what the fuck an impaired asset is. We're going to find all that out. The OCC is an independent bureau within the United States Department of Treasury that was established by the National Currency Act of 1863 and serves to charter, regulate, and supervise all national banks and federal thrift institutions and the federally licensed branches and agencies of foreign banks in the United States. The acting controller of the currency is Michael J. Shue. Its HQ is in DC, of course. It has 4 district offices located in New York, Chicago, Dallas, and Denver. It has 92 operating locations throughout U.S. and it's an independent bureau of the United States Department of Treasury and is headed by the comptroller of the currency appointed to a 5-year term by the president with the consent of the U.S. Senate. The main objections of the OCC is to ensure the safety and soundness of the national banking system, to foster competition by allowing banks to offer new products and services, to improve efficiency and effectiveness of OCC supervision, especially to reduce the regulatory burden, to ensure fair and equal access to financial services to all Americans, to enforce anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism financing laws that apply to national banks and federal licensed branches and agencies and international banks, and to investigate misconduct committed by institution-affiliated parties of national banks, including officers, directors, employees, agents, and independent contractors. Interesting. Anyway. And impaired assets. Impaired assets are those assets on a company's balance sheet whose carrying value of assets on the books exceed the market value. I hate when people use the word in the definition, but okay. So the assets exceed the market value or recoverable amount. All assets are either intangible or tangible or prone to impairment. It is required by the entity to conduct an impairment test in case indications are concerning. I'm not really a fan of this website that keeps this fucking pop up, bro. Never mind. You're tripping. Let's just highlight it. Open up a different website to give me a definition because I can't with you. It's an asset that has a market value that is lower than the value listed on the owner's balance sheet. In accounting, this can happen when the asset's projected future cash flow is less than its current carrying value. When an asset is impaired, the balance sheet needs to be written down to its current market value and an impairment loss is recognized. So it's going down. The value is going down. Impairment can include property, plant, equipment, and inventory. For this, a conservator would be appointed such banks. Title 3 allowed the Secretary of Treasury to determine if a bank requires funds to survive or operate with the president's approval. If the approval is received, the bank can receive capital from the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. Can you read Title 4 for me?
Title 4 granted Federal Reserve the right to issue emergency Federal Reserve bank notes where the commercial bank assets acted as a guarantee.
And I have something that we'll probably read tomorrow. Probably won't get into it today because we've already been talking long enough. Okay, Title 5 allowed the legislation to come into force, and the provisions were declared effective on that day. So then on March 1933, Roosevelt announced that the commercial banks in the 12 Federal Reserve cities would reopen immediately. These 12 Federal Reserve cities are Boston, Cleveland, Chicago, Kansas City, New York, Richmond, St. Louis, and Dallas, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Minneapolis, and San Francisco. And they have a lot of things in common as far as like all the riffraff and nonsense that happens in these areas. Further supporting my motherfucking theory, I wonder if it makes a little shape across the map and connect the dots and come up with a weird thing. We're going to get there. That's where I want to be. Banks in about 250 cities with recognized clearinghouses were open. Finally, other banks were also open on March 15th, and they were examined and declared sound. So, the FDIC was a key milestone in boosting people's confidence in the banking system and ensured customers' bank accounts. The president in the U.S. received extraordinary powers to act independently of the Federal Reserve. The U.S. and the dollar were taken off the gold standard monetary system through the introduction of the Emergency Banking Act, Titles 1 and 4. Then market indices, Dow Jones Industrial Average and New York Stock Exchange showed significant price increase after the banks reopened. The Emergency Banking Act of 1933 is strengthened American banks by restoring people's confidence in American banks. Once the banks reopened, customers instantly returned to the banks. Little sheep. The EBA is still in effect today. Specifically, two important provisions are still relevant. The Federal Deposit Insurance ensures customers' deposits, guaranteeing people money that they have deposited in banks. However, there is a $250,000 limit on federal insurance. Secondly, the extensive powers conferred by the Act on President still hold. The extensive powers conferred by the Act on the President still hold. Exactly, because this is a bank. Was the 1933 Emergency Bank Relief Act successful? Yes. The EBA was largely successful. Once the banks reopened, customers redeposited more than 66% amount they had previously withdrawn. So they deposited more than they had withdrawn when they were going to take money out. Was it relief, recovery, or reform? The 3 R's of Congressional New Deal are relief, recovery, and reform. The EBA is an excellent example of relief policies. EBA's primary goal was to reassure bankers and encourage them to return their savings to the bank. Interesting. And then they give you some links. I would like to get into the Dodd-Wall Street reform at some point. And then what was this? Oh, this thing over here with the Services Modernization Act of 1999. 1999. How long is this? How long have we been talking for? No. We'll do this one tomorrow. We've been talking long enough. But yeah. I was also going down the rabbit hole with the Securities Act, certified stocks, definition of dollars and stuff, negotiable instruments, what's that? What's a capital note? I was getting into the different kind of notes, and then it brought me to the Trust Indenture Act, which is crazy because indenture just means contract. I know I'm late to the party on that one, but it was like indentured service and contracted servants, different, connections I've seen with that. And then I want to get into the Federal Reserve Act. So, yeah, these are all the different things. Federal Reserve Act was enacted like 30 years before the Banking Act of 1933. So it only took like 30 years for that shit to fall apart. Very interesting. But yeah, so that's the rabbit holes I've been going down. I'll try to keep these ones open and remember that we're actually doing these when we stream, because the other ones probably going to do on my own. And slowly creating my own little document that I've been copying and pasting information into to read, as one thing. So without further ado, here's the part 2 to today. I'm going to move myself and we're going to press play. Talk about conditional acceptances.
Hey, hi guys. What's up? Look what I got. This thing right here. What's more powerful? What's more powerful, this or this? Time will tell, my friends. I'm frankly not sure. I'll tell you right now. I truly. So this is the video that so many of my fans have been wanting to see, and I've been talking about it forever, for like months. This is my second conditional acceptance video, and I am so fucking excited, dude, to show you guys this, because now I finally figured out what the next step is. I wasn't sure what I was going to do and blah, blah, blah. I haven't sent all this yet, what's on my desk, but it's going out in the next couple of days, so it's not going to matter anyways. So I want to show you guys, we're going to break down the entire conditional acceptance. The second one that I did, the first one I did is a lot simpler. This one's quite a bit more advanced. And then we're going to go into the next step as well. Okay. So here we go. We're going to just jump straight into it. I don't want this video to be too terribly long. So let's just jump into it. I got my Polaroid camera. So here we go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through this conditional acceptance front to back. I want to see how much of myself is being taken up by the screen here. I'm going to reduce myself for this video just to make sure I'm not over top of anything. All right. So let's go to this. Here we go. So here we go. This was written on May 27th, 2022, conditional acceptance, okay, from Brandon-Joe, family of Williams, beneficiary, trustor, and secured party to the Social Security Cesta K Trust, all capital letters, Brandon Joe Williams, trademark pending, okay? So what that means is that I've already trademarked my all caps name. And I'm working on getting that process. It takes about 8 months. You can process your all caps name through the USTPO, United States Trademark and Patent Office. I think you can just go online, ustpo.com, and follow the instructions. I had someone help me, so I'm not totally 100% sure on how to do it exactly. But I do have a trademark pending for my name in all capital letters, so that's why it says trademark pending. Without prejudice is right here. You want to put that at the top of your document. That reserves your human rights. Here's my P.O. box. Okay. This is to the trustees and their principals. Notice to agent is notice to principal. Notice to principal is notice to agent. So what that means is basically to my trustees, which is Amex, and then their principals and their agents. So let's say, for example, you're going to see later on in this video, you're going to see right here. So number one, Stephen-J, family of Squeary. Okay. So he's the CEO of American Express. I sent this to him. Someone who works for him signed for the parcel. So that person who signed for him is an agent of Stephen J. Squeary. Okay. So notice the agent, which is this guy, Thomas Severe, which we're going to get into later on. He's the agent. So notice to agent is notice to principal. So it's like whether it's a receptionist or whether it's your lawyer or whoever it is that signed for this thing, notice to them is notice to you, buddy. And notice to you is also notice to them, vice versa. Okay. So this was sent to Stephen J., family of Squarey, CEO of American Express, World Financial Center, 200 Vesey Street, New York, 10285, registered mail, return receipt requested. And then here's the number, the return receipt number, right? And then I did completion of service and designation of witness. So they were witnessing it. The United States Attorney General, Merrick E., family of Garland. And that went certified mail. Here's a number. And then Rob, family of Bonta, California Attorney General, 300 South Spring Street, Los Angeles, California, 90013. Certified mail, return receipt requested. And then because I'm sending it to New York and because Amex is in New York, I sent it to Letitia, family of James, New York Attorney General, Albany, New York, certified mail. Okay. All copies mail will be original wet ink, signatures, autographs by my hand, notarized individually. There is no justiciable controversy here. That's like I said in the course, honor and dishonor. So the honor and dishonor aspect of like courts only see disputes. So what I'm saying is there is no dispute here. There is no controversy here. There's a whole video on the free course about controversy. I'm probably going to put this video on my free contract killer sign up page on my website. And the reason being is probably because just to have a third video, I have 2 videos on there now. This will be a third video. I'll have both my conditional acceptances on there. I think this is something that's good for more advanced people and stuff like that to be able to see my conditional acceptances. I've gotten a lot of questions about being able to see these. So I'll probably put this one on. It'll be post-course video number 2, and it's also going to be on the Contract Killer website. So it's going to be on the course too, okay? So this is regarding 2 different cabbage loans that equaled $54,100. And this also includes 2 different American Express accounts. One had $25,070 and one had $98,023. Okay. So the first part that I roll into here on this conditional acceptance is basically the common law contract via the postal code, right? So the postal code says that once they sign for this parcel that I'm going to send them, basically we now have a common law contract. Okay. So that's basically what this section is. I just copied and pasted this from, I believe it was one of Christopher Hauser's friends, Lee Harvey Oswald. He had a conditional acceptance that Christopher Hauser sent to me. And this was on it. And I just copied and pasted it. Okay. The poster rule. So basically it just states that the mailbox rule and that, you know, when I send this to you and you sign for it, you're contracting for what I'm talking about, okay? Then we go into section A, definitions. Definition number 1, the most important definition, consideration. So these are some various definitions of the word consideration, right? That I handpicked myself from Black's Law that I felt applied to this particular situation, okay? 4th edition, right?
Mariah Carey's Christmas Time. Performing.
Any act of the plaintiff or the promisee from which the defendant, the promisor, or a stranger derives a benefit or advantage or any labor, detriment, jar, inconvenience. I don't know if that's a misspelling. Jar, inconvenience sustained by the plaintiff, however small, if such act is performed, or inconvenience suffered by the plaintiff by the consent express or implied of the defendant. So it's talking about a benefit to the promisor or a loss or detriment to the promisee, right? So with a credit card, they're not putting anything up at all whatsoever. Just like I said in Money, Money, Money Part 2, which I just released, I think, yesterday. When you sign the promissory note, the promissory note to pay the credit card. They just turn around and trade that promissory note for the Federal Reserve notes, and then they just give you your own money back at interest. So there is no consideration in any sort of credit card a deal or mortgage. There is no consideration at all. So we have the definition of consideration. We have the definition of failure of consideration. Okay. Failure of consideration is in fact simply a want of consideration. Now, as per contract law, there has to be equal consideration in order to have a contract. So the whole point of what I'm trying to get at here with these definitions is there was no consideration, thus there is no contract. You think there's a contract, but there's not. And you need to prove to me that there is consideration, which they can't do. Otherwise, the contract dissolves instantaneously. So that's basically what I'm trying to do here with these definitions. Then you have the definition of tender. This one here is basically the second definition, right? The one that I went over in the previous video, in the money part 2 video. The offer of performance, not performance itself, and when unjustifiably refused, places other party in default and permits party making tender to exercise remedies for breach of contract. So I sent Amex 3 checks in the form of 1099A negotiable instruments. So the thing is that they were all monetized, and they all 3 of them were for the specific amounts that I had put in this conditional acceptance to pay off all of the accounts in full, right? So because they didn't really reject it, that means that they accepted it. They either do nothing and say nothing, which means that they accepted it, or they send it back to you, which means that they rejected it. But they don't really reject those things because they know that as per this definition, and plus something else we're going to be going over here soon in the UCC, if they reject it, then it just discharges it either way. So they might as well just keep it. Fraud, here is the definition of fraud. A generic term embracing all multifarious means which human ingenuity can devise and which are resorted to by one individual to get advantage over another by false suggestions or by suppression of truth, and includes all surprise, trick, cunning, dissembling, and any unfair way by which another is cheated. Okay. Bad faith and fraud are synonymous, and also synonyms of dishonesty, infidelity, faithlessness, perfidy, unfairness, etc. Right? Anything calculated to deceive, whether it be a single act or a combination of circumstances, whether the suppression of truth or the suggestion of what is false, whether it be blah, 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 blah. Anyways, it's actual or constructive, blah, blah. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. So the whole point of this particular definition and why I put this in here is because a lot of the definitions of fraud do have kind of this idea of intent, or they specifically say intent in them. So let me see if there's one that's non-intent. Yeah, it includes cases of the intentional and successful employment of any cunning, deception, or artifice used to circumvent or cheat another. Okay, so they with the design of perpetrating what he knows to be a cheat or deception. Okay, so so generally speaking, it has the idea intent in it, right? And then so they have the intent to fraud people. They have the intent to gain control over people or screw people over with all the bullshit that they're doing with these loans. Okay, so that's fraud. Justiciable controversy, which I said at the beginning of the thingy. This just says, like, you know, it's basically one person asserting something against somebody else, and they are contesting it, and then now this can be brought before a court. So I'm not detesting anything. That's why I put there is no justiciable controversy. All I'm doing is just saying, hey, prove a few things to me, and I'd be more than happy to pay this bill. Okay. So definition of money, which you've gone over a lot, definition of instrument, which you've gone over a lot, definition of negotiable instrument, which you've gone over a lot, definition of bond, which is a certificate of evidence of debt. Okay. Section B, laws and statutes. I just kept this simple. This is a long time ago. I've learned a lot since this time. UCC 3-603 states, if tender of payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument and the tender is refused, there is discharge to the extent of the amount of the tender. Just like I had said in Money, Money, Money Part 2, whether they accept what you send them or they reject it, it doesn't fucking matter. The entire amount of whatever you tendered, whatever you sent in, is then discharged. Period. Period. End of story. Section C, facts and events. Number 1, I am not a U.S. citizen and have taken time to change my status to state citizen, U.S. national, as well as eliminate my volunteer employment status of the federal government as a withholding agent or any other capacity. I have never had a marriage license. I am a non-taxpayer and also a non-voter via revocation of election and request for voter cancellation. As there is no way to pull me into statutory jurisdictions for a tribunal court, as I am only able to be judged by a jury of my peers and will never waive my right to a jury. I will also never accept a lawyer as they are officers of the court. If you would like to take this matter to court, you can contact the California Assembly for a common law court assembly of a grand jury. I will not be seen or tried in a tribunal court of maritime law. As per the Constitution, I have the right to a grand jury for any amount over $20. Number 2, there is a trademark pending for my all-cap Sesta KV trust named Brandon Joe Williams, and you are expressly forbidden from placing that on any documentation mailed to me. I will only respond to communication expressly communicated to all lowercase Brandon-Joe: Williams, beneficiary. In all lowercase with the hyphen, comma, and colon. Any communication without that express title for my name will be returned to sender as incorrect address or name. Quote, Brandon J. Williams or any other variation of my name will not be responded to. The use of my trust name without permission is slander of credit, which is actually a technical term, and it's a federal securities violation and may be met with a lien if done. No consideration was put forth by both parties, only myself. American Express is involved in a failure of consideration on all accounts mentioned herein. That's number 3. Number 4, American Express is involved in fraud as per the above definitions by knowing that all debt is prepaid as per HJR 192 and charging a person's trust while at the same time accepting secondary payments on the account by sending, quote, bills to, quote, customers to collect Federal Reserve notes from them directly. There is also fraud in the way the money is created, where the promissory note is a negotiable instrument that is traded or, quote, sold for Federal Reserve notes and given back to the, quote, customer, as if the money is coming from the bank and also given at interest, which violates contract law as well as trust law, as the customer, quote unquote, is the beneficiary in the transaction. Then a reverse trust scam is used to flip the customer to a trustee without them knowing it. Number 5, I am aware of the fact that my account has been double dipped for each transaction using 1099-A forms to access my Sesta KV trust. There may even be triple or more dips happening that I am unaware of. Number 6, I am going to assist you in double dipping by enclosing a new 1099-A form with all 3 parts of the sheet filled out. Because the 1099-A forms, the original ones that come from the IRS, they have 3 checks on them. 1, 2, 3, right? So I filled out all 3 of the checks, okay? One was for my cabbage loans. One was for the Amex card that was ending in 1002, and one was for the card ending in 2001. All 3 negotiable instruments will be monetized on the back to make them officially negotiable instruments. Number 7, I don't mind the double dip as long as the accounts are ideally paid in full and left open. But from my research, you generally close the accounts when this style of payment is used. I would prefer to have the accounts open if allowed. Number 8, Federal Reserve notes are not money as per the definition above. Federal Reserve notes are negotiable debt instruments or bonds. The 1099-A form I will be sending you is also a negotiable instrument. You cannot reject this negotiable instrument just because you prefer, quote unquote, another negotiable instrument as per UCC 3-306. And the definition of tender above. Definition number 2. If the 1099-A form enclosed is not accepted, then all these accounts are instantly discharged, and you should send the 1099-A form back to me to be destroyed. As per the definition of negotiable instrument above, each 1099-A slip will be signed, monetized on the back. If you keep the 1099-A form, I will assume you are cashing it. If you send the 1099-A form back to me, then the debt will be discharged without payment as my negotiable instrument has been unjustifiably rejected as per UCC 3-306 we went over before. Section D, conditions for acceptance. Number 1, please accept the enclosed 1099-A sheet. 3 total submissions, 3 checks on the submission, okay? And mark all accounts as paid in full. I would like to keep the accounts open, but I assume you will close them. If they are allowed to be kept open, then please let me know via letter or email. I would love to continue to use my accounts while permitting double dipping with 1099-A forms. Ideally, in the future, I would just submit them online to make this easier. Then I can email in copies for you to process. If the person reading this is unfamiliar with how to cash the negotiable instruments I have sent in, they should find someone who knows how to do that. You will need the 1099 OID, 1040V, 1096, and 8888 forms. The 8888 is for direct deposit rather than check and allows you to get your money faster. If the 1099-A is accepted, then that is all the conditional acceptance requires. If it is not accepted, then this will be the following conditions for acceptance. Number 2, please provide evidence of consideration beyond any reasonable doubt that equals or exceeds all money paid into this policy. Oh, this is actually, I should have changed this. This is actually a copy and paste from a previous conditional acceptance. All money paid into this policy throughout the life of the policy in relation to the number of claims made on the policy. Oh, geez, I messed up on this. So this should have said, please provide evidence of consideration beyond any reasonable doubt that equals or exceeds all money paid into this account throughout the life of the account. Number 3, please provide evidence showing beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is no want of consideration as regards to this account. And then number 4, provide evidence and proof as to how exactly the money was created, as well as what fund or pool the funds came from that show it was a legal and correct source of funds. So I guess I didn't spot that I had not changed that over. This is copied and pasted from a previous conditional acceptance that I had sent to a insurance company. So anyways, here's a star and a note. Please have all the above points sent back as a notarized affidavit of truth by an individual human swearing under oath the truth and accuracy of each point. Okay. Again, if the 1099-A form is accepted and the accounts are marked paid in full, then points 2, 3, and 4 are irrelevant and can be ignored in order to complete this contract. Section E, limitations of time. From the point of signature of receipt of this conditional acceptance, as per the postal code listed above, I will give you 30 days from receipt to fully address each of the above points, point by point. Otherwise, this matter will be considered settled and paid in full with regards to the accounts mentioned herein. After 30 days, if no response is given, please send a receipt showing the account paid in full for all the accounts individually. Again, I would like to leave these accounts open and pay them with online submissions of 1099-A forms permitting double dipping. If additional time is needed, please do not hesitate to request additional time via email to myself. My approval will need to be in writing to be considered an official extension of time, either via email or via letter. Avouchment. I, Brandon Joe, family of Williams, do hereby avow that based upon my firsthand knowledge and information relayed to me from research, this conditional acceptance is true, accurate, and correct to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief, and conveys the conditions set forth as intended by me. And there's my signature, California. Please see attached jurat, California jurat. And then there was actually a separate jurat that was used here. You can see California jurat with affiant statement, which is basically the person writing an affidavit. And here is the notary's information. And then here's an optional section. And this is the description of attached document. Okay. So this is the original conditional acceptance that was written by, or hold on one second. There's one other thing I wanted to grab with for you guys. So this that was the let's see here. I got so excited that I just kind of like jumped on this thing.
I'm Millie, a content creator, coach, and business owner. If I had to start my
So, yeah, that's the conditional acceptance that I sent to Amex. It's way more advanced than the other one that I had sent you guys, the first one, because it has the trademark and it's got like way more information and stuff, you know. So I never heard a word back, but here's the deal. So I sent it certified mail, and then on the certified mail thingy, or you send it registered mail, and you check mark this little box here, like you learned in the course, signature confirmation, right? So what happens when you do that is you get back the let me see here. Oh, let me see here. I am missing one thing. Give me 1 second here. I've been talking about this one for so long too, that this conditional acceptance and making a video about it, that finally here I am, finally ready to send it out. And I got so excited that I have not even fully prepared for this, but it's okay. Well, this sucks. Hold on 1 second. All right. I'm back. I got so excited that I didn't have all the pieces to the puzzle here, but now I do. And you guys are going to fucking die over this shit. It's so funny. All right. So let me download this. All right. And then let me make sure that I'm with you guys here. Okay. So here we go. So when I sent in the conditional acceptance, I got back these. So you can see here on the screen, this is what you get back from when you send in the conditional acceptance. And you can see here on the lower left, you can see this is the numbers that were sent on the registered mail. Okay. This is who it was sent to on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side here, this is the person who signed for it. You can see it's their original signature in black ink, Thomas Sevier. Okay. So this guy, Thomas Sevier, he didn't check the checkbox agent, but he should have, because he's an agent of Stephen J. Squeary, who's the CEO of American Express. And you can see that I sent, this is the back of the 3811 form. That's this form here, okay? So I figured something would happen, and I figured it would go somewhere, and it never did, and it just took forever, and nothing ever happened. And they just started calling me, and they just kind of pretended that they never ever received any of my information or my parcel or anything. They basically just pretended that it doesn't even exist. Okay. Now, I've been trying to figure out, I mean, it doesn't really fucking matter. I mean, I've got the signature. I've got the signature that they received the parcel. So there is literally no like question about the fact that they received it. So as long as I hold on to that evidence, there's not really any issues, because there's no way for them to say like, oh, I never got it. Like, I have evidence that they got it. So that's not particularly a problem. But so I've just been kind of like, whatever, like they keep calling me and sending me shit and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't really care. Like, what are you guys going to do to me? Nothing. Right. But I recently realized that there's something really, really, really amazing and fun and exciting. And it all comes down to this bad boy right here, the Polaroid. Okay. So now I'm going to show you what I'm going to be sending in this week. Okay. So first and foremost, the secret weapon is the Polaroid. So I'm going to show you the Polaroid that I made, and I'm going to send all this into just the normal, like American Express payment processing center, just the normal one that they put on the statements themselves. Okay. So what it's going to have is right here. I'll show it to you guys. So this is a picture of the Polaroid that I made for MX. Okay. This is a cucumber outfit that I had bought on Amazon, and I made a Polaroid out of it. And I actually have the Polaroid right here, so I can show it to you guys live before I send it. Here it is right here. So you can see like how it looks and the size of it. And then here's the back, and you can see that. Okay. Now that bad boy is going in a parcel, and I'm gonna put a copy of the conditional acceptance, the original one, into the parcel, and then I'm gonna send it probably certified mail, because it's not like a big deal. It's just a letter, right? But here's the front, and then here's the back. The front says to my sexy, amazing MX trustee, and there's a little heart. And then on the back it says, "I pray you're a woman. I promise I'm not gay." Okay, that's the back. Okay, now it's going to be enclosed with all of my recent statements, and then there's going to be the Polaroid, and then there's going to be the original signature, a copy of the original signature of Thomas Sevier, so they can see that I have that Thomas Sevier did sign for the original parcel. And then it's also going to have this letter. "Hello there, my dear friend. I hope you are having a good day. If you are not, I have enclosed a Polaroid of myself in a pickle costume that I made especially for you. No joke. I walked downstairs and found a couple of hot girls, and it was really awkward, but I said, I know this sounds strange, but I need 3 Polaroids of me in a pickle costume to send to a friend. I wasn't sure how to do a Polaroid, so I took 3. The one I'm sending you is the one that came out best. Forgive me, this is my first time creating Polaroids. I hope you love it. Keep it on your desk to put a smile on your face when times are tough. I'll be there for you." Now, this story is all completely fucking true. I literally went downstairs in my apartment complex. I was like, well, fuck, like, this is an amazing excuse to talk to a bunch of hot girls. There was a shitload of hot girls down there. I found 2 that were kind of stationary and they were working. And I was like, yo, like, what's up, hotties? You know, not really. I just said, hey, this is like super awkward. I had the pickle costume and I had the Polaroid camera, and I didn't even really know how to turn it on. And I was like, hey, this is super awkward, but can you guys take some Polaroids of me in this pickle outfit, right? And they were cool with it. The one girl thought it was hilarious. The other girl was like not digging it too much, but they helped me out. It was awesome. Met some people in the building. Okay. So I said, I have a problem that I am hoping you would be so kind as to assist. I sent in 3 checks to pay my account in full, and they were signed by Thomas Sevier. I have enclosed the original conditional acceptance that I sent in, as well as a copy of the original 3811 form with Thomas's signature on it, showing that he did receive the parcel. I have also included all my previous statements, as I would like my account to be retrogressed, not sure what word to use, to when I sent in those 3 checks, and any additional fees or interest that was added after that date to be taken off my account so that my accounts can be paid in full and so that I can begin to use my cards again. Could you assist me in finding the checks that I sent in that Thomas paid for and help me get my account back? Thomas paid for and help me get my account paid for by my checks. The checks are from a trust account, and the trustee to that account is not available. So I have no way to know if the checks have been cashed, but I am getting many calls. So I don't know why my account has not been marked as fully paid. I would like to start using my cards again. Please also mark my account as do not call until all this can be sorted out. These checks were for both my Amex cards and my cabbage loans. I said here, thank you so much. I know it must be boring and stressful with a job, taking and handling payments all day long. I hope my Polaroid makes you the most popular person in your area and you and your coworkers get a good laugh from it. And for the love of God, I hope you're female. If you're a dude, then hell, maybe you can use it to pick up that cute girl you've had your eye on in the office. They say don't fuck your coworkers, but I don't know. You have the power of Pickle Man on your side, so I can be your wingman for this one if you really want to go for it. You rock. Much love. Platonic if you're a dude. Gross. Brandon Joe Williams, beneficiary, certified mail. And here's the certified mail.
Let's go, buddy. Let's go. Come on. Mom.
So basically, like, it doesn't fucking matter if they do anything with any of this. It doesn't fucking matter if you never want to put on here, like, did you receive it? Is it there? Like, no, you already have proof. You already have evidence. Like, if you went into a courtroom or something like that, you would just bring, not that would ever fucking happen. I'm just saying, like, you would just send in a picture of that thing, the signature that proves that Thomas Sevier or somebody had paid for this thing, or had picked it up and signed for it. And that's really all you have to do. I mean, it's really, really super ultra simple. Not that you even have to do any of that, but it's just like, there's a lot of like anger and frustration and hostility and like, how do I get people to accept my 1099A and this and that? Well, it's like, if they didn't send it back to you, then they did accept it. Whether you like it, whether they like it, doesn't fucking matter. And by them, again, it's just like I said in the money part 2, they're breaking the law by not accepting your negotiable instrument. So they're breaking their law. They're breaking statute, their law. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to lean them? Are you going to send them Polaroids? Are you just not going to give a fuck? I mean, I'm kind of in the category of like, I just really don't give a fuck. Like, part of the reason why I'm even sending this shit is just for fun, literally. Like, I could care less. They're never going to get anywhere with me at all, ever. It's like never going to go anywhere at all whatsoever. The most they're going to do is call me a bunch and annoy me, and then eventually report to the credit agency, and within 48 hours, I'll take it down. So it's super easy to get this credit stuff taken off of your credit report. I mean, you just say, I mailed in payments. You could say, like, HJR 192 says there are no debts. There are no public debts. You could say, public law 73-10. You could say all these different things. There's like 9 different ways to skin the cat when it comes to getting your credit score repaired if they report it to the credit bureau. So that is a joke. They can't come after you. They can't do anything. They don't want you going into any sort of courtroom or anything with any of this information and start asking questions or start making it a court of record and start that's like their worst nightmare, because then all this shit's going to get out. So they'll never do that. They're not going to do anything. They're going to just report you to the bureau, and then it's like, okay, you write like one dispute letter and send it in. And by law, the credit bureau has to take down the dispute until the dispute has been completed. So I wouldn't doubt it if they don't want anybody knowing it either. So you send in the dispute and then they go, oh, we're like looking over your dispute. And then they just are looking over the dispute forever. But the thing is that while they're looking over the dispute, they have to take down the dispute. So you win either way. You win if they just never say anything and they just take it down and just analyze the dispute forever, then it's still gone. It doesn't fucking matter if they approve it or not. So there's literally no way you can fucking lose with this shit. It gets to a point where, bro, just get a fucking Polaroid camera and have a shitload of fun. Buy costumes on the fucking internet. Go on Amazon. I have a red panda onesie that I haven't worn yet. I have another really hilarious Christmas onesie. Okay. I have a Master Roshi outfit from Dragon Ball Z with the fucking staff and everything and the mustache. I'm gonna wear that fucking thing. I'm gonna take Polaroids and send these fucking people Polaroids of me in Master Roshi outfit. I'm gonna go down and find some fucking hot girl and say, hey, can I take a Polaroid of you and me together to send to an old friend of mine? I don't know. Who fucking cares, bro? Send them Polaroids of your fucking dog. Like I recommend that you put your own face or body in the Polaroid, because then it's like, yo, check out me and blah doing something, or check out me doing the dishes. I love doing the dishes, or whatever. It could be something simple. It doesn't need to be, a Master Roshi outfit. You know what I mean? It could be anything. You know what I mean? But basically this right here, I'm telling you, I've been telling all my fans and stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and I've been yelling about this Polaroid thing. This is the greatest strap-on. It's got a strap. This is the greatest strap-on in the world, and I am just so excited about all your conditional acceptances, everything. If you're sending in something into the fucking county, if you're sending something into this or that or this and that, like you're gonna send this fucking Polaroid in, and then they and all their friends, they're gonna get together and talk, and it's like they haven't had a laugh or a smile in God knows how long, and here they get this fucking pickle man. They don't know it's one stupid fuck. I don't know if they're gonna look me up or whatever. We'll see. But I just said pickle man because I'm not trying to promote myself, or I don't really care if they find my shit or not, to be totally honest. So make this fun, make this exciting. This is, in my opinion, the huge monster evolution that is going to change all of what we're doing. It needs to shift. We need to shift our mindset from this like fucking like fuck you, blah blah blah. You need to accept my payment, blah 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 blah. And we need to start off like super fun and playful and light. I mean, obviously you can get a claim of lien, and we can do stuff like that too. But realize, like, is there even any, like, what's the real risk if you're discharging a mortgage? They can't do anything. They fucking can't do anything. So like, yeah, they're not accepting your payment, but they can't foreclose on you. They can't do anything because you've technically paid the whole thing off by law. And you just tell them, bro, take me to court, bro. Let's go, dude. Take me to court. Turn on the fucking TV cameras, bro. Turn on all the cameras and let's fucking go in there. And they're like, oh, well, actually, never mind, bro. You can just keep the house, whatever. They're not going to want to do that. So, have fun with this, man. I mean, if you're trying to pay for something in order to get something in exchange and you don't really have any leverage, maybe you can get more into like a claim of lien and that kind of thing. But if you've already got the car and you're discharging it, if you've already got the credit card debt and the credit cards are already spent and you're trying to discharge that, or there's some other debt or a house or a mortgage or something like that, who gives a fuck, dude? Who gives a fuck? Like, You sent in the payment. You have a receipt that they received the payment as per UCC 3-603 or whatever the fuck, the one we just went over. It's over, bro. Like the thing's paid off. The thing's fully discharged. So I don't really see the problem. Plus, I mean, yes, I've had people tell me like, oh, is that like your way of showing that you're a fucking human or whatever? It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, it is kind of, but really, I mean, I don't really give a shit about that. I mean, yeah, it is. It's not like it's not. I'm going to show you guys this thing too. So it's not like you're not doing that. It's not like you're not showing that you're human. Yeah. That's not really the point though. The point is like to create an emotional connection, to make them laugh, to give them some fucking excitement in their day or whatever, right? The point is not like you're trying to benefit them with the Polaroid. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to be the trustee and they're the beneficiary in this particular like sub moment. They're the trustee and you're the beneficiary on the whole thing in your account, right? But in this moment, in this second, you're being the trustee just to make them laugh and enjoy their wretched existence for 5 seconds or maybe longer or whatever. And you're writing them this kind of funny letter and then you're sending them this Polaroid. And yeah, so I'm super excited about the Polaroid. And then one other thing I wanted to share with you guys on this is I bought this this seal, and it's pretty cool. I think you guys will like it. And it's basically what it is it's basically like a press, okay? And it doesn't have any ink in it. It doesn't have any ink in it, and you customize what you want it to say or look like, okay? And it's like $80 or something, or like 70.
At Vistaprint, we print your brand on everything.
Maybe you can't see it so well. It says Brandon Joe, family of Williams, official seal, the living man. So I'll say that again. I don't know if you can, I hope you can read that. It says Brandon-Joe, family of Williams. Now I tried to get on this seal. Now I'm going to put the seal on all my paperwork. This paperwork here, I was going to do it and then show it to you after doing it. But I got so fucking excited tonight after doing the Polaroid and everything and the pickle costume. I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the moment to finally do this conditional acceptance I've been talking about forever. That's why I didn't even have those documents ready. I just ran over here and turned the camera on. I got so excited. But this is cool. I recommend this. I do have the red thumbprint pads too. So you're kind of like, yes. The answer is yes. You're trying to be the living person as much as you can. Yes. But you also don't want it to be like, look how alive I am. Look how alive I am. Ugh. It's like the seal and the thumbprint and the signature and the Polaroid. You're turning this into a human experience. It's not just look how human I am. Look how you're like turning the entire communication into like a live human communication. It's not like fuck you, just approve my shit, fuck you, blah blah blah. But it's like what I wrote. Hey yo, if you need a wingman, if you want to fuck your coworker, let's go, dude. I'm gonna help you fuck your coworker. You know what I mean? Like that is like it's just like Dan Pena says. He always talks about he says there's a poll and how many people have had fantasies about fucking their coworkers, and it's like and the the survey results is like 88% said yes, and the remaining 12% is lying. Bro, I love Dan Pena so fucking much, dude. Oh my God, I fucking love that guy. Dan S. Pena, the QLA guy, Quantum Leap Advantage. Oh, I just love him so much. I've read his book like 29 times, dude. But he says he says the survey is 88% said yes and 12% are lying. That's where I got this thing from for this letter. I was like, all right, I'm doing fucking Dan Pena here, dude. I'm gonna help this guy out, fuck his coworker. You know what I mean? Like, anyways, this is the conditional acceptance for the MX and then also communicating. It's just not fucking serious. Oh my God, it's just so unserious, guys. Seriously, like, Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck what they do? Who cares? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? What's Amex going to do? What are they going to fucking do, bro? I got my passport. I got my revocation of election. Everything's all fucking tied up as fuck. I literally, like, I'm so fucking uncontracted into the system. It's insane. Literally, they can't even pull me into a fucking normal courtroom. They'd have to do like a common law court, and common law people hate these fucking creditor people that are fucking people over and lying and cheating and ripping them off and sucking them like vampires. They'll never. They know for a fact if they walk into a fucking common law court, oh my God, they're going to be murdered before they even show up in the courtroom. So, what are they going to do? I don't own anything. What are they going to do? Are they going to take something from me? I don't own anything. So what are they going to do? There's nothing they can do. And you say, well, I own a lot of shit and I'm scared. Okay, put all your shit in trusts. Put it in your friends' names. Do whatever. Don't have assets under your name. You know what assets under your name means? It's assets under your name in all capital letters. So it's assets under a corporation that the United States government owns. So by having those assets in your name, they're just sitting there waiting to get stolen from you. And it's actually very easy for them to steal it from you. They literally own your assets just as much as you do, to the point where they can just literally just dip into your account and take it, just like the government does when, they want to, you don't pay something or you do something or whatever, the IRS or whatever. So if you do have things in your name and you're scared about them coming and taking it, you should be spending all your time moving your assets, not writing up this shit. I mean, that should be your first priority. Getting out of the system, uncontracting as much as you can, moving all your assets out from underneath your name, getting it somewhere safe, and then now it's playtime. It's all playtime. This is all playtime, man. I'm just having fun. This is just a sandbox. We're doing Polaroids. I will send them fucking dick pics, bro. Like, I literally don't give a fuck at all. I will send them pictures of my bleached asshole, literally. So just realize, like, when it gets to this point and you're having this much fun, it's infectious. They're like, wow, this dude, is so, maybe they're not. I don't know. I don't care. I mean, the bottom line is that you're going to inject some fun and some life into that payment office. You know what I mean? With your Polaroid and your letter. And if it doesn't go anywhere, who fucking cares, bro? Who fucking cares? So that's basically where I'm at with this. I will post more as we go. If I get anything back or if anything exciting happens, I'll let you know. But this has been something you guys have wanted for a long time, and I appreciate your patience. And actually, I don't think there's any other real, like, oh my God, everyone's waiting for this kind of a deal right now. I think I'm kind of caught up with this video, which feels pretty good too.
Back in 2022, I lost two very important people in my life.
Maybe I'll go out and get drunk tonight to celebrate and wake up naked in a crop circle. If any girls want to join me, wake up naked in a crop circle or wake up naked in a city park fountain. That's another good one that I enjoy very much. Anyways. All right, guys. I love you guys. Thank you so much. This is going to be on the course, and it's going to be on the Contract Killer course sign-up page. So you can find it in either location. So again, thank you. The Polaroids this is the evolution. This is where we're headed. I promise you, this is the future. Don't stress yourself out. Don't get all fucking stressed and send shit in and get all pissy and pissed off and you're angry and now your family has to deal with an angry mom or an angry dad or your fucking girlfriend or your boyfriend or your side hoe or whoever's now having to deal with an angry, upset fucking person. It's just not worth it, man. I mean, what is there to be fucking angry, upset about? You start getting into shit like Polaroids, everybody wins, bro. Everybody fucking wins. Polaroids are the fucking answer, bro. Everything needs to have a fucking Polaroid. Everything. Like, if I could go back and put a Polaroid in and a little letter with my fucking passport application, I would have. I got a 5-star, so I can't get anything better. But like everything, bro, like my revocation of election that I sent to the IRS. Oh, dude, if I could rewrite that thing, I would cool it way down. It was all fucking harsh and nasty and shitty. And I would have cooled it way down, and I would have sent in one of these bad boys right here. I'm telling you, this right here, if you want to send shit in, I mean, it doesn't matter if they come after you or not. They can't do anything. They're fucked, and they know it. They try to intimidate you. That's all they can really do. As long as you realize that, they can't do anything to you, okay? But I'm telling you, when you send in Polaroids and you make it fun, and you make it cute, and you make it exciting, I would say you probably reduce the chances that they're going to get all pissy and come after you with a fucking knife. They're just going to laugh and say, this guy's fucking crazy as fuck. Just file him. I mean, whatever, you know? So, but you're not doing it just for you. You're not doing it just as a selfish thing. You're doing it as something to kind of like inject that humanity, inject that life, inject that fun, that affinity, that fun, that excitement, that you're making the whole fucking thing a human interaction. And the more that you do that, yes, the more you prove that you are human. So it all comes together, but you're not trying to make it human. You're just making it human. You're not trying to make it a human interaction. It's just a human interaction. It's no different than going to the gas station or meeting a cute girl who fucking drops something and she's bending over and you're like, damn, look at that ass. Like it's all the same shit. It's literally all the same thing. You're just making all these things a human interaction. And I'm telling you, this is like, I had this realization like 4 or 5 days ago or 6 days ago. And I'm telling you, this thing is huge, huge. Like what have I brought to the table when it comes to this whole movement and all the people working on this movement? I've kind of brought everything together into one kind of like course, and it's like very kind of like linear and cohesive. That's one thing that a lot of people like. Yes, I've brought the humor. Yes, I've brought the simplicity. I've brought these things, but that's mainly like, but in terms of like real technology, in terms of like, what have I offered to this movement that's actually like evolving the movement itself and the technology itself? I'm telling you, this is it, bro. This is it right here. I am so fucking proud. I am so fucking proud that I'm about ready to send in this Polaroid of me in a fucking pickle outfit, bro. This is the evolution of law. This is the evolution of the conditional acceptance. This is the evolution of the state national movement. This is the evolution of everything that all of you people are trying to do and that I'm trying to do. And I promise you, and yes, I don't have the results yet because I'm just doing it now, but I swear to God, I guarantee this is the direction that we need to head. So buy a fucking Polaroid camera, go on fucking Amazon. I paid $150. It came with 16 films. So you're going to need to buy maybe one extra film pack somewhere. I haven't done that yet. 16. I fucked up the first two. Well, the second one's kind of okay. The third one's fucked up. So, you know, it's $150. I don't know how much the reloads are, but this shit is worth its weight in fucking absolute gold. You can also get a seal. Those are cool too. You can customize it with the letters. Now, keep in mind that the seal, as you saw, I tried to make mine in all lowercase and it came in all uppercase. So you may want to call the company. They may not even offer something in all lowercase. So if you're concerned about upper and lowercase, you may want to call them before you order one of these and see how it's going to come out, because mine came out in all uppercase. You can get ink pads, red ink pads for your thumb. If you want to, you can get those on Amazon for like $5 or $6. And yeah, dude, Polaroid, buy my merch, buy my hat. I don't need your fucking money. What I need is I need this in your home. I need to know that this is in your home. I need to know that me and my big fucking dick in my mankini is inside your home, dude. It's called Big Dick Energy, and I need your help to achieve Big Dick Energy. So, okay, guys, I think that's everything, and I love you guys. And Polaroid time, bitch. Let's go.
So, guys, here's the